On that Monday.
Let's call the Monday, June 6th meeting of the Dalton City Council meeting to order. Mr. Mock will lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda is before you. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Not, I'll entertain a motion to be approved. Motion by Mr. Mock, second by, what's your last name now? Ms. Sams. Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Public commentary, we have no cards, I guess, nobody from the public. Minutes of the May 16th, 2022 meeting are before you. Any additions, corrections, deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Mock, second by Mr. Farah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Unfinished business, second reading ordinance 22-07, ordinance to amend the mayor and council of the city of Dalton employees pension plan. In section 1216, caption, no pension benefit payable before termination of employment, pension to cease if again placed on payroll, to provide an effective date, to provide severability, and for other purposes. Terry, Andrew, Greg.
Good evening. This is what I hope to be the final reading of this ordinance that will allow retirees to work up to 16 hours per week and not have their pension benefits stopped.
I believe the city administrator has to approve each one of these. Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor, I'm going to vote for it with some reluctance. If I ever see it being abused, I'll be the first one to, put it back on the agenda, take it out of the code. I've seen it abused in the school system for years, and I trust our president, city administrator, but that we all know it may not last forever that he's there in that seat. But anyway, with those reservations, I'm going to vote for it.
I'll assure you, Andrew will outlast me. And any other questions? Motion by Mr. Mock, second by Ms. Harlan, Ms. Sams. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number
Thank
3, we got 6 new 2022 alcohol applications.
Okay, these were heard before the Public Safety Commission on Tuesday, May 24th. The first one is applicant Jose Martinez. The business address is 229 Hampton Street. It's a new license for prior year for pouring liquor. We'll put these all together. The second is Kumo Sushi Inc., located at 1277 North Linwood Avenue. It's a new license for pouring beer and pouring wine. Third is going to be Dagoberto Hernandez LLC. New businesses Taqueria El Rey number 3, located 801 East Walnut Avenue, Suite C, new license for beer and liquor. Fourth is
Motion by Ms. Sams. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Farah. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. Number 4, application and permit for conditional encroachment on City of Dalton right-of-way grease trap at 229 North Hamilton Street.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, so this is the right-of-way encroachment for 229 North Hamilton Street. The owner intends to install a grease trap at the rear of the building on West Hamilton Alley in between Hamilton's and Crutchfield Furniture.
Any questions? There a motion? Motion by Mr. Box, second by Ms. Harlan, Sams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 5, CDBG Meals Program Agreement with Brotown LLC. Cindy,
That's
where's?
me.
all right,
Cindy couldn't make it this afternoon. Mayor and council, this is to utilize some of the 2020 COVID-19 relief funds, CDBG CV3 funds that's been allocated to the city of Dalton for the implementation of activities to benefit low-income residents. Basically, what the city can expend these funds on are a food program, forgivable business loans, and rental assistance. The city leadership believes that the food program is the biggest need at this time, primarily due to the inflated food cost at the grocery store and restaurant costs. So we did through the finance office an RFP to all local food service businesses that have an occupational tax certificate in the city, and we received 2 proposals. Dose Bros doing business as, Brotown LLC doing business as Dose Bros received the highest score. And the meal program will provide 4,500 meals at the John Davis Recreation Center and the Housing Authority for 15 days during the period of June 13th through July 1st. And it'll be a total of 4,500 meals during those 15 days. And that's the recommendation from the finance department and city administration.
Any questions?
Time of day with these meals.
I believe it's during the evening hours between 5 and 6. So 4:30 at the Housing Authority, 6 o'clock at the John Davis Center renovations. And I should have mentioned, this is only for residents within Census Tract 4, so they'll be required to provide their address in order to qualify for the
What is Census Tract 4? What is it?
areas served by the Housing Authority and John Davis Center. We'll try to publish a map on the website so people will know.
Any other questions? Hear a motion? Motion by Mr. Box, second by Ms. Sams. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Number 6, agreement between the City of Dalton, Georgia, the Dalton Board of Education for the School Resource Officer Program.
All right, this is the annual contract renewal that we do with the Dalton Public School System. There are a couple of changes to this year's contract that's before you. The most significant amongst those is we'll be adjusting the number of officers, if this is approved, from the current allotment of 5 to 6. And the SRO changed additional position will be covering elementary schools. So the staffing, the way it is now, there'll be 2 SROs that will be covering the elementary schools and assigned officers within Hammond Creek, Dalton Middle School, Dalton Academy, and Dalton High School. I will be meeting with the school board next week with Ms. Sams, and we'll be discussing additional security measures, I'm sure, at that time with the Board of Education. And there may be some other adjustments that I bring to y'all outside of this contract that we'll be making to address safety issues within the school. But this is what has been requested from us as of the end of last week, is for those 6 SROs, and we're making headways for filling those positions for them.
Now, you said something about they may be working toward having an officer to every school.
One of the topics they want to discuss at the Board of Education meeting next week is long-term planning for SROs within the school. And during that discussion, I'm sure we're going to be talking about the NASRO recommendations, which is basically the body that makes the recommendations for SRO programs throughout this country. And we'll be discussing what NASRO recommends in reference to SRO staffing. And that way the Board of Education can do some additional studying on that and decide what direction they as a school system want to go, since they're the one that makes the request for the SROs from us. So I'm sure it's going to be a very informational meeting for all of us involved next Monday night.
What would you recommend?
My recommendation would be to look at what GEMA is putting forth in regards to SROs and what NASRO has out. If you look at the recommendations from those, they recommend based off of school size, the number of SROs, as well as trying to have SROs assigned within each school. But it's one of those things. I've just started reading all of NASRO's recommendations in the last couple of weeks since the incident in Texas, trying to become better informed about the best practices on that. So I still have some homework and some reading to do between now and Monday next week to fully wrap my mind around what is going to be the best fit for us.
Sounds to me like a lot of planning needs to be done. If issues need to be addressed, why? I'm wondering, Chief, why we have to do this tonight when school doesn't start for 2 more months? If there's a lot of dialogue and study that needs to be done in light of what happened in Texas.
The billing aspect is why we're putting it for you tonight. July 1st is when the next SRO contract would go into effect. So the school was wanting to know what the cost would be for the 6 officers that would be signed to them. We always present the SRO contract this time of year for the renewal. Even if a decision is made to, in the future, increase to an SRO in every school, that's something that we have to hire for. And for the foreseeable future, we see the 6 that's being requested now as being what we're going to be able to achieve in the near future. And that's why I presented it to you. But if y'all decide you want to table it,
Tell us again how many that puts in elementary schools
that's just 2 that would be assigned to float between the elementary schools.
out of 6 elementary schools, or
5.
5? 2 out of 5. And a few weeks ago, they were wanting to reduce from what they had this year.
Right. They did want to go to 4,
They wanted to go to 4, and now they're up to what?
back to the 6 that we were at a couple of years ago when they first started reducing the number of SROs. But
I don't see what is acceptable for that purpose. It's for security.
I agree that I do agree that your upper levels of education, it's a different type of role that the SROs play within the schools. Regardless, it's about relationships and mentoring and doing the things beyond just safety. But, what we have to keep in mind is that, the Board of Education and the school system are the ones that determine what level of security and all of that takes place in the school system. As a police chief, I have no direct control over how they decide to staff or what directions they may take. I would definitely make my recommendations based off of best practices and what industry experts are saying. But, this is part of the reason we're going to talk next week with the Board of Education, is to start having these discussions to make sure they understand what your concerns are as elected officials, as well as what mine is as a public safety individual, to see if we can get where we need to be in the long run. And,
I think it would be good before the meeting, as best you can, to let them know what the budget would be for all 9. I believe they got 9 schools, right?
that's my understanding, that
The budget would be with
We'd
9
have
police
9.
officers at each one of the schools.
I can have those numbers crunched and provide those to you later this week. Hopefully by tomorrow, I should be
I
able to
think
get
it'd be
them
good
to
for you
you.
to provide it to the school board also.
Well, I will share it with y'all. I will share it with Dr. Scott and Mr. Wells as well, so they'll see what those numbers are prior to the meeting on Monday. And if they want to share it with the school board or y'all want to share it with the school board, we can do so. But, you know, yes, it's a 75-25 split is what the percentage is.
This contract is amendable if.
It
they
is.
decide to do something else.
If they decided to add additional officers to it, we could. But, you know, right now, you know, the request is for the 6. We're doing everything we can. We have 5 of the spots where officers are assigned to as of July 1st. We intend to have the 6th person selected before the end of this month and have them in SRO training the first week or so of July when that's taking place. So we're doing everything we can to address this 6. And then everything after that's just going to be us getting closer to where we want to be. So. It doesn't, and I've done some research on the SSO programs, which are school safety officers. And that's some information I sent to Mr. Wells earlier today, so he could look at that and see what some other places are doing at the elementary level while they're trying to hire up to get enough SROs for all of the schools to have a police officer inside of them. So I will forward that information to you as well, either later this evening. That would be completely through the school system as a school system employee. So they could do whatever the school policy allows them to do with that.
They armed?
The ones in Hamilton County that I've been speaking to, their manager, they are all armed. They don't wear, they wear kind of a soft uniform, more like our training uniform, not the formal.
They have a gun.
Yes, they do. Most of them are retired officers that come and do that as their second job. They're employees of the school system there in Hamilton County. So there's, I will forward you the information on it. It's very informative when you start looking at how they've approached that. And not saying that's the model that we need to go with by any means, but it is an option that a larger school district chose to try to get to the point where they could have more SROs.
I like it when a Dalton police car is sitting out in front of the school.
I worry about how many costumes you can shop, somebody doesn't go through their education. Somebody can start to fire on that kind of a high stress situation. Practice, if you will. Can we pass this with amending the contract here on the fly, or do we need to table it? I have some concerns about Dalton Police Department. You know, your standards here and the private contractor standard is.
And at this time, I don't even know if the school is going to entertain that option. I just know that the discussions we've had with Mr. Wells are that, you know, he wants our people inside the buildings when the school year starts back, and that's what we're trying to do. And, you know, we may have to look at some other options to enhance that further. I just haven't had really a chance to flesh those out at this point, but you know, over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure we'll get a lot more information on it. But
Mayor, it somewhat troubles me that we're having this conversation. To me, the school board ought to be here begging for more officers.
Well, at the end of the day, as the chief said, it's their call. We can't, as far as I know, legally, we can't do anything amongst that, whatever. I think it's, we probably, since this is coming up July 1, we probably need to go ahead and, because this is amendable, as you said.
it is.
Go ahead and pass this. And then we'll go further after you've had your meeting with them and all that. And you can express, you know, this body's desire that we'd like to have one at every school. You know?
So this one does provide though for them to go with private officers.
But it doesn't,
No,
but that's not even on the table right now. It's
But there's nothing that prevents them from doing that.
nobody, but if they do that, then we can come back and, you know, obviously react to that. But I think at the end of the day, if they're going to, I got to believe they're going to go with 9 policemen because you said the guy wants policemen in these schools.
And I think, you know, we'll have more information after next week. But, you know, the thing is, even if we go with a 9, you know, to get with a trained SRO in each school, you know, we've got to ramp up our hiring to get to the point where we can backfill the spots on the road that we'd be transitioning people from, because we still have other safety sensitive roles that, you know, the officers perform in the community beyond SRO. So we got a lot of work to do, and we're going to put the effort in to get some folks hired and get folks trained into the SRO function. So we're doing everything we can.
Explain to me again the urgency of doing it tonight. I'm not sure I understand.
Contract expires July 1. He's got to know for his budget what he's got to fund.
Because of their fiscal year being different than ours.
I guess that's why they do it this way.
Right. They're a July 1 budget year instead of January 1.
Their funding said this, right now, this last year we had 5, right?
We had 5
And
and
we're
then
going to
1
6.
retired, which put them down to 4 for the final.
By
portion
one,
of
we're
school.
going to 6.
And July 1st is when we're shooting towards moving into the 6 SROs and starting to train the folks for that. So,
Right now, there's 2 that you don't even have.
no, sir. There's only Jackie Herrera will be going to SRO school. She's already been selected. She was in the previous process before the school reduced their request from 5 down to 4. So now she's back going to the schools in July 1st. And we didn't have any other people still in the selection process for it. So we're having to run the selection process to identify the 6th SRO so we can send them to get trained. It's in July. I don't know the exact date, but it's in the first couple of weeks of July.
Obviously, I know it's somewhat, but what is SRO training? What's the difference?
So we're school resource officer.
No, but what the training you say they have to go to over and above the police officer? What-
It's mandated by the state because they have to deal with FERPA and some other things, some legal requirements. And so there's a couple of years ago, the state put in a rule that anyone assigned to an SRO position has to attend the training within a certain time period. It's just to make sure they're up to standard on what the laws are that impact juveniles, them being in a custody position or custodial position over some of the people at certain times. So there's just different rules compared to what the typical police officer has to deal with.
What I might recommend, given that the board meets on the 13th, which is Monday from today, 1 week, so that they know the contract is approved, approve it tonight. And then because again, the contract has been amended based on the feedback from the superintendent and their safety officer, who is a former law enforcement personnel. So the chief and our best understanding is this is what they're asking us for. If the board at their meeting next Monday asked to amend and add additional positions or whatever, the council could then ratify those changes on the 20th, which is our next meeting, and that would still be in time for July 1st to meet the contract deadline. And but by approving tonight, you would know, or the school board would have confidence in knowing that the council has approved the contract and it's in effect.
Well, also, I'd like whoever's meeting with them, you and the chief, who's meeting with them.
And Lee and the chief.
And I think this body's in unison with this, that we recommend they have a policeman at every school.
I'll relay that to them for you.
I mean, I know what just happened in Texas, but it happened in Dalton, Georgia, like 3 or 4 years ago. In one of our own schools. Threat like that,
With the teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, the teacher, yeah.
with a weapon. I mean, we all remember that horrible afternoon, so.
I think we can discuss those things with them. We just got to be careful that we don't get overcommitted to where we might not have a resource to dedicate to it. I mean, we're significantly understaffed right now, so I don't want to create a legal situation where we've obligated beyond what are able to commit to.
How far are we right now understaffed?
I would say probably 8.
8?
I've got 5 in the academy. 1 just started today. And I've got 6 unfunded positions that we're gonna have to fill as we go into 2023,
Unfunded positions are funded and not filled.
unfunded.
Hasn't been brought to my attention.
I'm sorry, what?
They were the ones that we didn't get to fill this year because well, we were trying last year, but with the COVID years,
So they're not in the budget?
Full bodies in uniform.
Not, I mean, we lose about 10 officers a year is what our turnover rate is. During the COVID period there, we lost the 10 officers on average a year, plus we only were able to hire 3 or 4. So we got further behind because during the middle of COVID and the pandemic, people were not coming and applying.
What have you
Because-
seen since we obviously greatly increased the pay and also changed the retirement plan for the new people coming on? Is it made it easier? What did,
This last 6 months, things have really taken a turn for the better. We've hired 6 in the last 3.5 months. But, we've just recently seen the improvement with the number of people we've had apply and that we've been able to hire that meet the standard.
to get those 6, how many applied?
It's probably about 150 or so applications to hire 6 folks. It's about 1 out of every 30 that apply meet standard is what we've seen in the years past.
So what's yours and Andrew's recommendation?
I would approve the contract for the 6. Let's make the commitment, show them that, we support that. And let's get through the meetings next week. We'll have more discussions. Ms. Sampson, I can relay what we learned from that meeting to y'all. We'll relay what y'all's long-term desire is for the staffing levels in the schools, and we'll try to figure out how we're going to get there. So.
Any other questions? Motion by Mr. Mock, is there a second? Second by Ms. Sams, all in favor, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, like sign. Number 7, ordinance 22-15, the request of Charles Myers and Johnny Washington to rezone from heavy manufacturing M2 to rural residential R5, attractive land totaling 0.87 acres located at New Doris Street, parcels 12-255-03-036 and 12-255-03-040. Ethan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got a fairly straightforward rezoning here. Basically, this request is these 2 separate parcels to be rezoned from heavy manufacturing to rural residential. And while that is a very big change in zoning, when we take a look along New Doris Street at the development in this area, you'll see that this is somewhat of a pocket neighborhood that at a point in time in the past got swallowed up by the heavy manufacturing zone district because, again, historically, if you had a heavy manufacturing zone district, you essentially had no zoning. So at one point in time, these were conforming uses, but they no longer are. That causes a number of issues with construction permits and, of course, mortgages and things like that. So found no issues with it from an impact standpoint on adjacent property, comprehensive plan, and heard no opposition. Staff recommendation was to approve. We got a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission. Happy to answer any questions.
Question of Ethan.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Farrar, is there a second? Second by Mr. Mock, all in favor, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, like sign. Number 8, first reading ordinance 22-16, an ordinance to repeal subsection number 1, initial applications of section 6-7 of the revised code of 2001 for the purpose of consolidating consideration of all applications for license for the sale of alcoholic beverages at the mayor and council to repeal conflicting laws and regulations to establish an effective date and for other purposes. Who's this?
I'll do a quick intro, Mayor, and then have our city attorney chime in with any other thoughts or comments. As you said, this is a first reading. What this ordinance provides for is to try and expedite the review and issuance of alcohol license. Right now, that process by ordinance, the Public Safety Commission is required to meet and provide a recommendation to this body prior to a license being issued. We have received some feedback that That process could take up to 2 months based on the fact the Public Safety Commission only meets once per month, and then the council meets twice per month. And so in looking at the review of these applications, the review and vetting primarily occurs from the city clerk's office and the city attorney, and then they provide a recommendation to the Public Safety Commission. So what this ordinance would do is repeal subsection 671 of City Code to not make those initial applications go before the Public Safety Commission. But one thing this ordinance would preserve is that should an entity be found with an alcohol violation, they would still be required to go before the Public Safety Commission for a hearing regarding penalty, suspension, revocation, or a combination thereof. So they would still be the body to perform those reviews if a violation occurs. But the initial application, if this ordinance is approved, would come before the city council first. Mr. Miller, did I miss anything?
No, you got it right. I mean, historically and by local law, which is the charter of the city, it's the mayor and council that is always has the power to grant authority to issue franchises or licenses, and that includes alcohol beverage licenses. Historically, the practice that we followed was done for years by custom and practice under the old Civil Service Commission, now Public Safety Commission. When we were asked to research it, it was codified by the city as an ordinance in 1999 and 2000 to this Section 1, and it did give this responsibility to the Public Safety Commission for initial applications. But all they are and all they can do is recommend under the charter. And so it was felt that perhaps there were most of the licenses are properly issuable that by the time they come to the commission, and in some instances there are what applicants feel like may be inordinate delays in trying to coordinate the meetings of the two bodies. And so if there's any merit to it, it would be more efficient to bring it to the approving body, which is the mayor and council. The ordinance is drafted very clearly to retain all those other responsibilities and powers to the commission, particularly to recommend penalties, suspensions, terminations of licenses for offenses, multiple offenses. That doesn't change. And really the real reason is pretty succinctly stated in the 3 whereas clauses in the ordinance before you. It is, as it was outlined to the city attorney, it was to make the process more time efficient, less cumbersome, where folks are waiting on proper approvals.
No action will be taken tonight. The next meeting will take action on this new ordinance. There being no supplemental business, their motion we adjourn. We're adjourned.